Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder, along with our CEO, Jenna Blum, of A Mighty Blaze, the book initiative that was begun when the pandemic started to help independent bookstores whose doors were shuttered, authors whose tours were canceled, and readers who just wanted to know more about what books were out there. I'm really excited today because we have the author Cai Emmons, the author of two of my favorite books. This is the first one, Livid, and this one, which just blew me away, also Unleashed. So Cai Emmons is remarkable. I first encountered her when her novel Weather Woman came out. It came through my mail slot, and I loved that book so much that not only did I blurb it, but I knew I'd read whatever she wrote after that. And she's just so imaginative. When I learned, because Cai is nothing but honest and accessible, that Cai has a form of ALS, which is slow moving, and it attacked her ability to speech, but not to think and not to write. I was honestly at first terrified for her. But there's nothing to be terrified about because Cai, first of all, is just this woman's on fire with creativity and enthusiasm and life. She's been just talking and talking about her disease and her writing and making the most of every single moment she has left. And none of us know how long we have left, but she's just a prime example of how to live. That made me admire her and adore her even more. So, as I said, she's the author of the book Weather Woman, His Mother's Son, The Stylist, and Sinking Islands. Her story collection, Vanishing, was the winner of the 2018 Leapfrog Fiction Contest. Weather Woman, about a meteorologist who discovers she has the power to change the weather, won a Nautilus Book Award and has been shortlisted for the Eric Hoffer Grand Prize. Sinking Island won a May Sarton Grand Prize. We're going to be talking about two of Cai's novels. The first one is Unleashed. Unleashed is absolutely transcendent. It's a book about a family of three people caught in California's wildfire season when both their lives and the world seems to be breaking apart. Booklist said about Unleashed, there's so much to admire in Emmons' crisp, evocative prose and thoughtful character studies. Dan Shawn, one of my absolute favorite writers of all time, said, Unleashed is deeply insightful about the current moment, the way we struggle to balance the conflicts of love and family with the apocalyptic thunderclouds ever growing over our heads. Cai has written a rich and moving book about the things that make life matter, even during the darkest times. And that's right. I mean, we're going to be talking about this later, but I have to say that that book, as soon as I finished, I emailed Cai and said, oh my God, I can't do anything else but think about this book. Livid, I immediately started reading Livid afterwards, which is a very different book, but also, as Cai likes to say, a sibling book. Livid is about female rage, which we all have a lot of right now. We all could use a lot more of. The rage belongs to Sybil, a woman who's been grappling with tragic loss, who's on a jury duty with her ex-husband who had an affair with another woman. But when she begins to identify with the woman on trial, and the woman is on trial for murdering her husband and cutting off his penis in rage, her own life begins to change. Says Lisa Genova, Livid is about a woman who's suffering from a tragic loss. It's a page-turning tale of love, loss, guilt, innocence, and those pivotal moments when everything changes. So, Cai, thank you so much. And here's your first question. You said that writing Unleashed was your body's chronicle of a developing disease, yet the transformations in Unleashed are euphoric and freeing. Did that euphoria surprise you?
That is an incredibly good question. Transformation can be good and bad, right? And in the book it is good. As you say, it's euphoric and freeing. Something one might not say about getting a terminal diagnosis like ALS. But in the book, the main character Lou has the same feeling I had in a visceral way. Things are not right in her world, and maybe they aren't right in the world at large. And so her change is a response to that, and her body senses the need for change before she understands what's happening. And at the end, she is much better off. Sniff the Glorious World encapsulates how she feels about things.
I have to just interrupt before the next question to say that Sniff the Glorious World is the last line of Unleashed, and I've been thinking of using that as my sign off in my emails because it's just like so transcendent and so wonderful, and I'll credit it to you, of course. Okay, so I want to tell everybody out there that Kai is using text to speech.
I was losing my voice, but I had no idea why. And, like Lou, I had a sense of things feeling amiss, out of kilter. My body understood what was happening, even though my conscious mind did not. And when I got the diagnosis, there was some sense of liberation. Like, oh, I see what's been happening. And, this sounds strange, but there is something liberating about dying. Ending all the earthly struggles. The striving to do this and that. The effort to be better at things. All of that kind of falls away, so I do sometimes have feelings of euphoria these days, odd as that may seem.
I don't think it's odd at all, actually. I think it's completely, that's why I love this book so much, because it really transcends the daily stuff and it really forces us to think every moment is all we have. So, and isn't it exciting and glorious and amazing to have that moment and that connection with others? Okay, second question. You say you are writing while running out of time, yet you've produced two of my, whoops, what is the origin story behind Unleashed? Sorry.
I began writing the book in early 2020, coinciding almost exactly with the beginning of the pandemic. It began with an image of a woman witnessing a terrible fire, and I first thought it might be a short story. But immediately a larger story grew around that image. And then the novel poured out of me. The story seemed very weird, too weird to be published, but it also felt like an expression straight from who I am, so I knew I had to keep writing. I wrote fast, much faster than usual, and in 9 months or so I had a draft completed. It surprised me so much when people responded to it positively.
Kai, is it all right with you if I tell people what the transformation is in the book, or would you prefer to keep it a surprise? Surprise? Okay, never mind. Next question, Bo. What was it like writing Unleashed during the pandemic?
I was happy to have such an absorbent project to focus on while the world was falling apart. The pandemic and the Trump administration, it was all such a shit show. And also I was losing my voice. Maybe that explains, in part, why I wrote so fast and obsessively. I didn't go out much, not only because of COVID, but also because it was becoming harder and harder to make myself understood.
Next question, Bo. There is a surreal and absolutely real feeling twist in Unleashed, which I don't want to reveal, and I won't reveal, except to say that it felt like I had entered a totally different world. It was so immersive and exciting. Did you feel that way writing this?
Without a doubt, I felt the writing of Unleashed changed me. Or at least I was different during the writing. I felt like a child in some way, free to write exactly what I wanted to write, with no sense of having to appeal to any readership or critics, or whatever. That can be a hard state to find after you've been published, and I was thrilled to be able to rediscover it. Now I just hope I can hang on to it.
Next question, Bo. How hard won was the choice for you?
Unleashed me.
Okay.
Or at least I was different during the writing. I felt like a child in some way, free to write exactly what I wanted to write, with no sense of having to appeal to any readership or critics, or whatever. That can be a hard state to find after you've been published, and I was thrilled to be able to rediscover it. Now I just hope I can hang on to it.
Okay. Okay. We're for those out there, Kai is doing a text-to-speech thing, so we're giving her a little time. And it is well worth it. So let me show you the gorgeous cover. Okay?
Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
Sorry about that.
Okay, next question. Okay, how hard won was the choice to slow down and savor life? What was it like for you to get that diagnosis?
Getting the diagnosis was both shocking and also a relief. It was a relief to know what was wrong with my voice, after a year of it getting worse and worse. But of course it also meant that I would be dying sooner than I thought. I had thought I'd live well into my 90s like my mother and my grandmother did. But now that is clearly not going to happen.
Wow. Next question. Oh, wait, Kai has more. Sorry, go ahead.
Quickly became clear to me that I'd been spending some time in ways that weren't rewarding to me. I tried to identify the things I was doing because I felt I should be doing them, and I tried to let those things go. Gradually, that has pretty much happened. The pandemic helped that process along, limiting everyone's activities so I wasn't the only one who started doing less.
Okay.
As the disease has progressed, simple daily activities take longer to perform, and they also take more energy. Like showering and getting dressed and getting my materials assembled for writing. I can't rush through things like I used to, and that has forced me to become more patient. I used to pride myself on being able to get up and get out the door in 15 minutes. I thought of myself as a quick and nimble person. Alas, no longer. I miss that quickness, but I also really do feel opened up to observe things more fully as a result of moving more slowly.
Okay, for next question? Yes? Okay, next question, Bo. All writers are obsessed with voice and how it sounds on the page. But your ALS started in your writing voice, correct? What did it feel like for you to use this new voice? And what surprises you the most about it?
It is so true that we writers think about voice a lot, the voice on the page. And we spend a lot of time developing or finding an authentic writing voice. It takes time. And we don't usually pay a lot of attention to the difference between our speaking voices and our written voices. We just know they're different. I think I felt, before the diagnosis, that I'd found my voice as a writer, a permanent voice that wouldn't change. And since losing my actual voice, I have had to use my written voice to say the things I would have spoken. So some of my writing, particularly my blogging, has become more conversational, a different persona on the page. I'm not sure if this has crept into my fiction yet, but I think it has. I have no interest in posturing or appearing any differently than I really am.
That's wonderful. You ready for the next question, okay? Okay, next question, Bo. Oh, I love this question. We're going to talk about LIVID now. Whoops. You've said that you've noticed that women are angrier these days than ever. So you've said that writing this, LIVID, released you as a writer. Tell us how.
There are so few satisfying ways to express the anger we feel, I think. I always love going to a demonstration and yelling with other women, but that only lasts for a short time, and then you go home and wonder what to do with the anger that is still roiling. But writing happens over time, and it takes thought. So for me, it's a way of giving the anger a podium where I can talk and rage for longer. It doesn't exercise the anger, it kind of gives it legs. And that is not only satisfying for me, but the hope is that it speaks to other women and creates a stronger and more lasting sense of community. And now I have a book with a red cover that says "Livid" along with the big scissors, and women seem to get what that is saying right away.
Yeah, it's just a great book with a great protagonist. All right, next question. You said it was worth risking alienating a few readers to write about the human condition. That really got me. Do you mean risking alienating readers who don't want their protagonists angry?
Yes, I think people are often afraid of dipping too deeply into anger, especially if they are going to novels for escape. So, anger in the protagonist can be a turnoff. But if people can find a way to hook their own anger onto the protagonist, it can be deeply satisfying. Like, yeah, I totally know what she's feeling. I had a reading recently where one of my surrogate readers read from a section of Livid where the narrator was talking about the incidents when her husband derided her in subtle ways. And the audience was absolutely pin drop quiet. It was clear everyone, even the men, could relate to it.
I also want to say that, there's so much, especially for women writers, about having likable characters. But why do we have to be likable? Why can't we be angry? If a male is angry, we think, good, he's going to take action against it. And in this book, Livid, a woman does take action, and it's remarkable. Okay, next question, please. How, besides voting, can women channel their rage when men are still in power?
Oh my God, that is the $1,000,000 question. I think that whatever we can do to keep our rage alive is important. Because the tendency is to suck it up and let it go dormant, thinking, well, we can't change this. But as long as our anger is active and present, we can then access it on a dime when we need to. For voting and demonstrating in huge numbers until things change. We can't risk letting our anger go underground again, as I think mine did for a long time.
Okay. Okay. All right, next question, Bill. Oh, do you think love and anger are always entwined? Why?
Again, a terrific question. I think that sometimes anger and love are deeply intertwined. In domestic situations, for example, when people love each other and that love is violated in some way, anger results. And the greater the love, greater the anger. If you feel so, then anger isn't so strong.
Okay, can we wait for the next part?
But anger in the public sphere seems to me a bit different. I am furious, for example, at Trump and the GOP, and there is definitely no love there. But I suppose you could say my anger originates from a vision of what could be, and how that vision is being violated by them. So in that sense, yes, you have to care about something in order to be angry about it.
That's right. That's right. And I think you also have to love something in order to also hate it as well. Okay, next question, please. Do you feel that books immerse us in another life, and so we get to safely live in that other life and experience it?
Yes, so much. Books give us space to think about things. The reading experience takes place over time, and in that time we react, and think, and work out our own opinions about things. Reading books gives us permission to play out various scenarios in our minds, just as a writer does. I hope that when people read Livid, for example, They'll be wondering how they would vote on that jury. And I hope, when reading Unleashed, people will think about the kind of transformation they wish for themselves. But I also think books offer us an opportunity to escape the horrors of the world we live in. As a child, I always went to books primarily for total immersion and escape, not so much to think. And I still love that kind of escapist, total immersion reading experience. And about the question of a jury, and the law, and guilt and innocence. In a trial, you see the importance of storytelling so clearly, maybe more clearly than in any other arena of life. The same events can be shaped to tell entirely different stories. Everything we see in the world is filtered through the lens of the story we tell ourselves about it.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's an interesting thing that if you tell somebody, the brain doesn't know the difference between reading a story and being active in the story. If you tell somebody in hypnosis, you're burning up, that person's going to start sweating or going, ow, ow, I'm really hot, because the brain just processes it that way. And in a really great story like Livid and Unleashed, part of the exhilaration and the fear and every other emotion we take in is because we're living it. We're living it. And the stories are making us live it, which is so, so important. Okay, next question, please. Oh, I am desperate to know, 5 years from now, how is Sybil? She might be angry, but I loved Sybil.
All right, 5 years. Hopefully she will be out of prison, and she will have established a satisfying life for herself. She will be wary of relationships, of course, and still cynical about the world, but she will be more stable. Maybe she will have found a new skill or activity she likes in prison, and she will be putting it to work. She might even find a way to become involved with children. And she and Jesse will be very good friends.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Sybil was, I actually wanted to go and have coffee with Sybil because I felt like I understood her and that she could teach me a lot. All right, so let's talk about, next question. Next question. At one point, one of the jurors asks, is anyone scared? I love the bravery of the narrator who jumps in. And I wanted to ask, does this question also pertain to ALS?
Well, when I wrote Livid, it was pre-ALS. I hadn't even started to lose my voice. Although I had a singing teacher tell me I might have dysphonia. Maybe the juror's question was another case of my body knowing something that my conscious mind did not. What I did know at the time was that I was scared about everything that was happening in the country. I could see we had a psychopath as our head of state, and the consequences of that terrified me and still do. And the thought of being on a jury and having to make a decision about anyone else's freedom, and maybe their life, is, for me, a scary decision to have to make. I watched the murder trial from beginning to end as research for Livid, and I could see that anxiety on the faces of the jurors.
Okay. Next question, Bo. What made you decide to have Sybil tell us the story like this?
First, I should say that I have never written a novel narrated in the first person. I have always felt that point of view was limiting and very difficult to write. Having to write and sustain a story told in the first person by someone who is not you. But I felt this story had to be told from Sybil's first person point of view, and once I got her voice and attitude in my head, and I knew she was not me, I became very excited. I wanted to convey something similar to the very rational, but also deranged persona that we see in the narrator of Lolita. Sybil isn't as deranged as Humbert, but for much of the story she is in a fugue state. In Lolita, the narrator is speaking to the jury, and that didn't seem right for this novel. So instead, I have her talking to her lawyer. That isn't explicit in the novel, and I hope it isn't a spoiler. She is explaining things to him, and, as you say, she isn't sorry for what she's done. In a way, she's proud. She has taken matters into her own hands. She is no longer a victim.
Okay, I also want to say about that something like you were saying about writing in first person. Often when I'm stuck in a novel, and now I'm mostly writing in third person, I will have the character just talk to me in first person. And sometimes I'll use it as a letter, or sometimes I'll use it as a diary. But you're absolutely right. There's something incredibly freeing about that and important in writing. Okay, next question, please, Bo. So much of your work is about weather. Wildfires in California, sinking islands, a woman who can change weather. What do weather and environments mean to you?
I grew up in a rural suburb of Boston. And as kids, my sisters and I spent a lot of time outside. Both of my parents loved getting out into nature. My father loved the mountains of northern New England where we hiked and skied, and in the summer we went to an Appalachian mountain club camp on Lake Winnipesaukee. My mother, a strong swimmer, loved the shorelines of Maine and Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So, I grew up cherishing those places and shaped by them. I often went outside for solace. I sometimes felt terrible when the changeable and often harsh weather of New England interfered with our plans. I also always had the fantasy that I could move clouds. So all of this came together in the character of Bronwyn and Weather Woman, who has the power to change the weather. And my interest in weather and climate change has persisted after I wrote that book, because the threat has persisted. In recent years, I have been obsessed with wildfires, ever since the town of Paradise in California was decimated in 2018. And 2 years after that, in the fall of 2020, fires came close to Eugene, where I live. People I know suffered terrible losses. What I write about in Unleashed was, eerily, written before all that devastation near here. I felt deeply prophetic.
Next question, Bo. What is your writing process like, and how has it changed?
By the time Sybil is serving on the jury, she has been through a lot in her life, but, as you say, she hasn't fully dealt with all of it. What she sees as a jury member becomes like a match to her sleeping rage. She begins to understand things that have happened to her in her light. She sees that she is not the only one who has suffered at the hands of men. And, for the first time in her life, she claims a kind of agency.
Okay.
The fundamentals of my writing process have changed. I still write first thing in the morning, and I try not to let any interaction with the world happen before I write. No email, no talking on the phone, even a minimal amount of talking to my husband, etc., though that has broken down a bit during this publication period. The biggest change since the ALS diagnosis is that, much as I try not to, I feel pressure to get as much work done as possible before my hands become too weak to write or type. I send my hands positive energy every day, wishing them to last me through finishing my current novel in progress, and through making my blog posts into a book. I don't have as much stamina as I used to, and, as I said before, I move slowly. I have to be very protective of my writing time.
Of course.
Other than that, things are much the same. Ha, ha, insert laughter.
Okay. Bo, next question. What's obsessing you now and why? It's a question I, a true obsessive, always want to ask.
I love the way you go right to the idea of obsession, because I always write from the well of things I'm obsessed about.
Yeah.
Obsession is the fuel for writing. Recently, well, in the past few years, I've been obsessed with how much evil seems to have been released into the world. Maybe evil isn't the right word, but hatred, cruelty, bigotry, inhumanity, empathy is in short supply, as is shame. So I wanted to write some fiction that would address that. It's the first time I've started with a general idea like that, so it took me some time to find a story that would be the best vessel for exploring these things. I think I've found it, but we'll see.
Okay. And our very last question, Bo. What question didn't I ask that I should have asked you?
You haven't asked me about my state of mind. Am I
All
happy?
right.
Because I want to tell you that I may be happier than I have ever been in my life, even though I can't button my shirts, or open most containers, or lick, or spit. I don't know if this will persist after I lose the use of my hands, when communication will become more difficult. But right now, I find life to be stunning and moving. I guess you might say I am sniffing the glorious world.
I have to say that part of why I wanted to talk to you is because I feel that from you, that you are making every moment matter. And I've never met somebody who's as happy as you are. I mean, it's just glorious. So I want to say that I hope that everybody will, these books are amazing. Show you the cover again of Livid and Unleashed. And I want to tell everybody out there, go to your favorite indie or go online and buy these books, buy all of Cai's books. And I also want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to thank Cai. And I want to tell everybody, go forth and sniff the glorious world. Every moment counts. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Cai. And we'll see you all later. Cai, just stay on.